Hello, everyone. I want to say welcome to our first webinar of 2026 for the Strong Foundation Professional Development for Geotechnical Engineers Non-Technical Webinar Series by the Canadian Geotechnical Society Young Professionals Committee. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Leonardo, and I'm the host for this non-technical webinar series. Some housekeeping items. If you have questions, please enter them in the Q&A field for our speaker. And if we have time at the end, we'll be asking and answering those questions. Lastly, please feel free to join our LinkedIn group for young professionals. I'm gonna type the link here in the chat or in the Q&A field so you guys can access it. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today. Kathryn Dompierre completed a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering at University of Manitoba, a Master of Science in Environmental Policy at the London School of Economics and Political Science, and a Ph.D. in Geoenvironmental Engineering at the University of Saskatchewan. Her doctoral research explored the movement of pore water, contaminants, and energy through oil sands, fine tailings using field testing and numerical analysis. She joined the GeoStudio Engineering research team in 2016 and now leads the North American user success team for Seequent's geotechnical analysis products, GeoStudio and PLAXIS, providing support, training, and learning content to users. Outside of work, Kathryn serves on the boards of two environmental NGOs and the Lake Winnipeg Foundation and Manitoba Eco Network. Please join me in welcoming Kathryn Dompierre.
Thank you so much, Leonardo, for that nice introduction. And thanks everyone so much for joining us today. It's nice to have you all here to chat about this. Before I get going, I'd like for you to all grab a piece of paper and a pen if you have one handy, or you can open up Word on your computer if you want to take some notes on there. You don't have to do this, but while we're going through some of the different topics today, I'd love for you to write down some of your initial thoughts, get some brainstorming going, make this a little bit of an interactive session. So it's hopefully not just me telling you what I think, and you can kind of be following along with some of my tips for the topic that we are focusing on today. So today's topic will be on building an impactful career. And sorry, I'm just having trouble with one of my windows. There we go. So building an impactful career and talking about recognizing your values and your strengths and using them to help develop your brand or what you want to be known as or known for as a geoprofessional. Why do I think that this is important and why was I asked to do this today? Well, I was actually one of the keynote presenters at the Young Professional Conference in Manitoba this past fall. And I talked about atypical career paths and how I used my own personal values to navigate different decisions along the way with my career path, which led me to a job that I find really fulfilling. Well, I want all of you to really enjoy your jobs and have a fulfilling career. And so I'm going to share some of my insights and some tips for you that will hopefully help you to have a career that you are proud of at the end of your lifetime. I also really love being a part of any of the YP events that the CGS has. The first Young Professional Conference I attended was in Whistler in 2016, and I loved it so much that I went on to help organize the one in St. John's in 2019. So thanks to the YP committee for always putting on these amazing activities and events that bring people together, help build network, but also help you to have a better sense of yourself as a professional engineer and sense of community as well. Okay, so let's get into today's topic. So what are we going to talk about? First, we're going to talk about what a brand is in general. Many of you are probably generally familiar with commercial brands, but let's talk about what a personal brand is. Then we're going to focus on the three main components of a personal brand, which are your strengths and how to recognize them, your values and your principles, building a reputation for yourself, and then finally we'll put it all together and we'll talk about how that can lead to developing your own personal brand and how to think about what you want to be in the future as a geoprofessional. Okay, so what is a brand? I've got a lot of common brands up here on the slide that are commercial brands, obviously a little bit different from a personal brand. But when we're thinking about what a brand is, it's generally a name, symbol, or design that represents a company or some entity. Brands are typically used in business, marketing, and advertising for recognition. Typically, the more distinguishable a brand is, the better it is. Although I'm sure you can think of a couple of brands that are known for maybe not having the best reputation. A highly recognized brand can hold a significant amount of value. So these brands that I've got up on the slide here, I would say that they would hold a significant amount of value because they're so easy for us to recognize. Now, when I said what a brand was, I said it's a name, symbol, or design. So when we're kind of moving from this commercial brand idea over to our more personal brand, our brand is our name. And so I'm sure you can think of some of the geotechnical greats, like if I say Nordy Morgenstern or Everett Hook, we hear these names and we have this connotation or we have this feeling about who they are. We know what their reputation is, we know what their knowledge is and what they brought to our engineering profession. And so that's kind of a nice transition from moving from this commercial brand idea to a more personal brand idea. So a personal brand is your unique value. And there's three main components to your unique value: your strengths, your principles and your values, and your reputation. We are going to dive into each of these individually, as I mentioned when I was outlining the content for today's session. But before we do that, I want to chat with you a bit more about why you should develop a personal brand, or why I think it's important. I think that when we're trying to kind of develop what we want to be known for at the end of our professional career, it helps you to establish what you want your professional identity to be. Maybe you have a current professional identity, but it allows you to develop that and expand it in order to drive you in the right pathway in order to reach what you want that overall identity to be at the end of your career. That influences how you move throughout your career. Also, if you have a well-known personal brand, it could help you to get a job or promotion because you've proven your strengths, you've proven your worth, and you have a certain reputation. It also can help you to make lasting connections. When we are more authentic and we behave with an integrity according to our personal brand and what we want to be known for, that allows us to make those connections that will last for a long time. Also, your reputation could help you in your career in terms of landing a new client or winning a bid for a project or other things like that. By identifying your personal brand, it can also help to build your own confidence. As young professionals that are newer to the field, we might feel not very confident in our abilities because we are so new. But by establishing your personal brand and what your strengths are and what your values are, it allows you to have a better sense of yourself and what you represent, what you bring to the table, and helps to decrease imposter syndrome, which I know a lot of us can suffer from, myself included, even though I'm technically not a YP anymore. And finally, by acting according to your personal brand and continuing to strive for that personal brand, allows you to build credibility and trust. If you act consistently and with integrity and you build up that reputation, then you will be recognized by others around you, whether it's just at your company or in the greater profession, to have credibility so that they trust you and they want to work with you. I actually wrote these points out and then I found this really nice image online that shows all of these things that I was trying to summarize. So if you want a quick reason or a refresh of why building a personal brand could be a benefit for you, you can just take a look at this nice image. So it helps with your professional identity, increasing visibility, trust and credibility, enhancing your career prospects, and allows you to build a network. Okay, so that's why I think building a personal brand is beneficial for you, particularly as young professionals, when you have a lot of time to figure out where you want to go, as well as a lot of time to navigate different decisions that will get you to that point that you want to be at the end of your career. Let's start by talking about now in a little bit more detail on that first part of your professional brand, which are your strengths. Now, there are four main components to strengths, and strengths are generally knowledge, skills, traits, and talents that are considered to be positive. We all might have some traits that are negative, and those would not be strengths, those would be weaknesses. So strengths are positive attributes. Let's now go through each one of these in a bit more detail. And as we go through them, I want you to think about what of those types of strengths you already possess. So the first one is knowledge. Knowledge refers to information or understanding that's often obtained through learning or experience that includes facts, concepts, and theories. This knowledge is related typically to your field of study or which degrees and certifications you hold. So that means it's relatively easy to determine which knowledge you have. If you would like to improve your knowledge, it's also a relatively easy thing to do. You can sign up for a course or workshop or some type of seminar in order to expand your knowledge in a certain area. One great example of something you could do is to sign up for a short course at the beginning of the annual CGS conference. I know there's a wide range of topics that are given each year that you could learn from. Now, before I keep talking, I want you to think about one area of knowledge that you feel strong in, that you know that you possess. Maybe if you've recently finished graduate studies in one area, what were you studying in your graduate studies, or what are you currently studying in graduate studies? Or if you've recently graduated, what was your favorite course that you did really well on, that you know you possess that knowledge on? I would immediately write down groundwater flow theory as something that I have knowledge on, because that's something that I really enjoyed and did well at in school. So hopefully you've all had time to write something down that you think you're strong at, that you possess that knowledge on. Now, one kind of final note here. I know that we're all tempted when we're looking for jobs or promoting ourselves or speaking with others to exaggerate our knowledge. It can be so easy to, if someone is like, have you heard of this? And you just simply say yes, even though maybe you haven't. But others in the industry or the people that we work with will quickly realize if you don't have the level of knowledge that you say you have. And so that could impact your reputation and whether people trust you and want to work with you in the future. So just be honest when you don't know something. It's a lot easier to build up your knowledge in a certain area if you aren't trying to pretend that you already have that knowledge. Now let's move on to the second part of your personal strengths, and that's your skills. Skills are practical abilities that you develop through the application of knowledge in real world scenarios. They're developed by practicing and observing situations. There are two main categories of skills. There's our hard technical skills, or there's our soft skills, and they're both very important. So technical skills, an example of this for geotechnical engineering, could be your skills related to numerical modeling, something that I really like doing, obviously, as someone that talks about models every day. Some examples of soft skills that you may possess or strive to develop are your teamwork skills, your negotiation, or your leadership skills, which are all kind of related to communication, integrity, empathy, and your emotional intelligence. Just like my note on knowledge, it is impossible to fake a skill, as it becomes quickly evident to those that you work with if you don't have that skill. So if you're applying for a new job or opportunity, be honest about your skill set to maintain and build your reputation and your credibility. Do any of you know of any skill sets off the top of your head that you have? Maybe some of you enjoy modeling and are good at it, like me. You could write that down. Or maybe some of you are really good at negotiation or have natural leadership abilities that you've developed. And so write those down on that piece of paper if you have one handy. Okay. Hopefully you had a chance to write something down. Developing your skill set is a bit less straightforward than developing knowledge because it takes time and practice. For example, you can take a course on leadership, but that doesn't automatically translate to you being a good leader. One suggestion that I have for you is to find someone from your company or the industry in general, or even in your life, that exhibits a skill that you would like to possess, and ask if they would provide you with mentorship, or even just observe how they interact with others and how they gain their knowledge so that you can learn from them, even if it is from a distance. For example, when I joined the GeoStudio team, I had amazing mentors that they demonstrated true leadership through their empathy, their communication skills, their patience, as well as their emotional intelligence, alongside their wicked modeling skills and their vast amount of knowledge. And so every day when I am trying to develop my leadership skills, I'm trying to use what I've learned from them and observed them doing in order for me to be a better leader of my team here in North America. The next one for our personal strengths is our personality traits. These are characteristics that describe how individuals think, feel, and behave consistently over time. We all have bad days when we act differently, so don't worry about the odd bad day. This is the traits that we have regularly, that we possess and people observe regularly. There are a lot of different models that can identify your personality traits, like Myers-Briggs. I'm sure many of you have heard of that. This one that I've got listed on the slide is called the Big Five personality trait model. I liked it because it has 5 broad dimensions of personality that are ranked over a spectrum, as opposed to sorting people into very binary categories like extrovert versus introvert. And so maybe there are some of these different personality traits you read and you see immediately, oh, I identify as being someone that is extroverted, or I identify as someone that's very organized or very careful. And so right away, you might be able to read through some of these different categories and feel like, oh yeah, I think I identify as being that. Sometimes I will admit I thought that I am one way by reading through different personality traits. And then I take one of the tests that you can take online, and I actually find out that I'm more a different way. I actually am slightly different from what I imagined. So you too can go online and determine your personality traits using a number of different personality tests. Could be Myers-Briggs or even the Big Five personality traits model that I've shown here. There's a number of different tests that are available online. They can really maybe open your eyes. You might actually act and behave or think differently than you thought you did from just reading through the different personality traits. If there's anything on this slide that speaks to you for one of your traits, write it down on that piece of paper and put it towards your strengths. Another thing to consider is that your traits are also related to people's perceptions of you. So it is how you think and feel internally, but it's the behaving and acting on those thoughts and feelings that also can have an impact on your overall personality traits that are observed from other people. So you may think or feel one way, but if your actions don't align, there could be some dissonance there in how you think you are and how other people feel you are. So again, take one of those personality tests and see if what you think you are matches with the results from that test. The final of your personal strengths are your talents. Talents are natural abilities that a person possesses from birth. There's no practice required to be talented at something. So you could be naturally talented at public speaking or singing or skating, but only one of those would obviously really apply to your geotechnical career, potentially, if you're in the need of doing some public speaking. It's important to note that talents can't be developed. So there's no way for you to expand the talents that you have. If you are working on developing something, then that is actually a skill, not a talent. Your natural talents can be tricky to identify, particularly if you've never had the opportunity to do something that you're talented at. Also, not all talents are as obvious as being good at singing. Sometimes they're a little bit trickier to figure out. One thing that I'm personally talented at is creating tutorial videos. And I did not know that I was good at doing that until I joined the GeoStudio team. My Ph.D. supervisor was actually the one that recognized that I was good at technical communication. And so he was the one that pushed me into joining the GeoStudio team, as he probably recognized that that was a talent of mine and something that I could contribute to the GeoStudio team. Can any of you think of a talent that you were just naturally good at, that you've never had to practice and comes easy to you? If so, write it down on that piece of paper. Maybe it doesn't even have to be related to geotechnical engineering. It's always nice to feel like we're talented at something. So if you have a talent, write it down, even if it's not related to our professional career. Okay, so I've been trying to get you to start thinking about recognizing your strengths, but sometimes it can be a bit daunting to think about what you're good at, especially as young engineers when we see people, so many people that are good at so many things that we are looking up to. In order for you to recognize your own personal strengths, which I think is important, you need to recognize those to help starting develop your personal brand. I want you to start by reflecting on past experiences. Identify times where you were successful at something. What skills, traits, knowledge, or talents contributed to that success? Then I also want you to think about tasks that seem easy or you really enjoy doing. If they're really easy, then you obviously have built up the appropriate knowledge or skill set, or maybe you have a natural talent for whatever that task is. Another thing that you can do to recognize your strengths is to seek feedback from others. You could ask colleagues, friends, or family for insight on what they think. Obviously, my PhD supervisor recognized a lot of my strengths before even I knew what they were. And I'm so grateful for him pushing me along and helping guide my, my career path because he saw a good fit for me in the GeoStudio team. You could also use online tools. As I mentioned, there's a lot of personality tests that are available online, but there also are a number of different videos that you can find online that will help you to recognize or at least get a better understanding of how you can recognize your strengths. And finally, take a look at your weaknesses. Sometimes if you identify your weaknesses, that will help you to identify what you are good at. Yeah, at least by identifying your weaknesses, you know what you're not strong at, and could even help you to figure out what things you need to improve in order to be a better professional. Okay, now here's why I think developing those or recognizing those strengths is really important. You develop better self-awareness, which contributes to that development of your personal brand. It also reinforces your abilities and increases your confidence, getting rid of imposter syndrome, like I mentioned before. It also can highlight strengths that are not being used to their fullest. So say you have a natural talent for report writing. Well, not everybody really loves report writing. So maybe you are really good at it, but you don't spend a lot of time contributing to report writing in your daily job. If you go to your boss or your manager and you say, hey, this is something that I know I'm good at, it's easy for me, I could contribute more in this area, that would help you with improving your contributions at work and progressing your career. So those next two major points that I've got listed there. So by recognizing your strengths and what you're good at, it can help you to be a better collaborator or better team player and assist in those areas which come easy to you. It also could help you to make better decisions. If you know what you're good at, then that means that say you're trying to determine how much time or money you're going to spend on a specific project. You know what you're good at, you know what you're strong at. Therefore, those tasks that you're trying to figure out how long it will take will be easier and will take less time. And assisting with career progression, if you are looking for a new job and you know what your strengths are, and that will help you to find jobs that are a potentially better fit for you because you know where your strengths lie. Also, by articulating your strengths, my example with going to your boss and saying that you're good at report writing and you want to contribute more, that will help you stand out. It shows that you're taking initiative, you want to be contributing to the team in a positive way that could lead to promotions or raises. So by recognizing your strengths, I think it could help push forward your career in many different ways. Now, for me, I really enjoy my job. I mentioned this at the beginning, and I want all of you to find a job that you also enjoy doing. And so I've got an example slide here of how my current responsibilities reflect my strengths, because I think that this is why I do really enjoy what I'm doing every day. Maybe not every day, but most days. So right now, I'm responsibility for leading a team of people in North America that are supporting GeoStudio and PLAXIS users. And so that reflects my strengths on team and relationship building, which I really love doing. I love getting to know people and having those interpersonal relationships and fostering collaboration between teammates. I also organize and provide training in my role. I love teaching. I've developed skills over time through my PhD, as well as by working in this role, teaching users how to use GeoStudio for many years. And so I really like teaching. And I also have organizational skills that come relatively naturally to me, which contribute to that. I create online learning content. I mentioned technical communication is one of my strengths. So I like doing that, creating those tutorial videos or online courses. I provide technical support, which reflects the knowledge that I've built up over time on the software. And finally, I support our different internal teams in sales and marketing, for example, to provide information on the products and how we can be communicating about GeoStudio and PLAXIS in our market. And that requires collaboration and communication skills. They don't understand GeoStudio and PLAXIS, so I have to make sure that they understand the technical content, but in a non-technical way. I also really like doing that. So this is how I feel that my job reflects my strengths. And so hopefully by you recognizing your strengths, you'll be able to find a job or a role within your current organization that is a better fit for you, where you enjoy going to work every day and you don't feel like, oh, on Sunday night, I don't want to go to work tomorrow on Monday. Because I've never had that. And I'm so lucky. I know that's rare. Okay, the next part of building your personal brand are your values and your principles. So let's talk about these in a bit more detail. Values and principles, often the terms are used interchangeably, but they're actually different. Values are deeply held beliefs that guide your preferences, priorities, and behaviors. They're very emotional. They're emotional and cultural lenses that you view your life, relationships, success, and even your own perception of yourself. They're very personal and they're subjective, which means that they can also change over time as you grow and develop over time. Now, principles, on the other hand, are fundamental truths, rules, or guidelines that are considered to be universally valid or logically sound. So unlike values, which are very subjective, principles tend to be more objective and enduring, more consistent overall. They're not about what we prefer. Values are what we prefer, whereas principles are what we ought to do, what we should do, what's right. Neither one's more important than the other. I just wanted to show you the difference between the two. Values are essential for building up your identity and your motivation, while principles kind of provide that guiding ethical framework to make sure that you don't get led astray in terms of your values and your actions. I've got some examples of principles, which I think they really speak to me and well, I personally feel that these are something that everyone should have as their principles. The first one is justice. Everyone should be treated fairly. The second is integrity, where your actions should align with the truth. Third is respect for autonomy. People should have control over their own lives, to some extent, unless they're impacting other people's lives. 4 is non-maleficence, so do no harm to others or to your environment around you. And the 5th is accountability. Take responsibility for your actions. Okay, so these are some generic principles. You can look up more online if this is something that you're interested in doing. You can see from these that principles are more consistent. So they tend to stay the same regardless of context. However, I will have a little bit of a note here. Principles tend to be more universal, but I would caution that our society has seen some shifts on many of these principles recently. It doesn't take long for you to find examples online or in the news or current world events that demonstrate a shifting in some of these principles. I believe that this makes it even more important for every one of us to identify our guiding principles and consistently act according to these principles every day. Developing and standing by your own principles generally can lead you to have stronger conviction or stronger character, which has a positive impact on building and maintaining your professional reputation. Principles are something that I see being very much related to a professional career, to a profession. I think that we hold ourselves not above other people, but we hold ourselves to a very high level of standard. And so having high principles, I feel, is related to that. Now, values. I've got only a few examples here of values that are listed. You can look up, there's many, many, many more available to find online. These values, they change from individual to individual, so they're very much what you personally identify as being. And they can also shift over time with experience or reflection. I mentioned that they can be impacted by other factors. So they can be impacted by your individual preferences, your family and how you were raised, the culture in which you grew up in or which you currently are living in, your religion, the environment in which you live, as well as education. There's more factors that can impact your values, but these are just some of the main ones that I picked out. Can you think of any values that you personally hold? Maybe there's something on this example list that speaks to you. If so, you could write that down as well. One example for me is that when I was growing up, my family did a lot of camping in the summertime. We would also go to the farm that my mom grew up on a lot. And together these led to my interest in the environment. That was further developed when I did my undergraduate degree in engineering and I took an environmental impact course. And the professor really spoke to me and it got me thinking about the bigger implications of engineering design and engineering work on our surrounding natural environment. And that's actually what led me to go and do my master's degree in environmental policy and why I continue to volunteer for different environmental organizations today, as Leonardo mentioned. So I have those values and I continue to express them in ways that maybe aren't directly related to my geoprofessional career, but I think strengthen my abilities and make me a more well-rounded individual that would, I think, contribute to my overall geotechnical profession in the end. Okay. So in addition to helping build your brand, here's a list of why I think it's important for you to identify your values and your principles. Again, identifying your values, it's a very personal thing. So this is something that you could take some time to do by searching different values online. So here's why I think it's important. They help you to align your actions with some type of purpose. Giving you your values, if you know what they are, gives you a sense of direction, and it provides you with a guiding framework for making decisions. It can also improve your personal fulfillment because if you live according to your values, could lead to greater happiness. Just like I said, my values really matched up with the values of the people and what I was doing as a part of the GeoStudio engineering team. And I think that's another reason why, not just how my strengths align, but also because my personal values align with other members on the team and the GeoStudio company when I first joined it, and therefore I felt much more fulfilled in my job when I joined. Your values can also help you to communicate more authentically if you know what they are, which can enhance your relationships with other people. And finally, since values can evolve over time, they will reflect your own personal growth and your changing perspectives, which is all very interesting. As I mentioned, these are all very personal, but I do believe that they impact your professional career. For example, when I first graduated from engineering, I worked for SNC-Lavalin in their environmental department. And while I appreciated the importance of field work, and I liked doing it, I did a lot of soil and groundwater contamination investigations and testing. But while I did appreciate that, I really valued a job that had more creativity and technicality. I wanted to use my brain more than what I was doing in the field. And it wasn't just that I was only doing, the field work. If I was doing something else with it, then I would potentially be using my brain a bit more and would have the ability to be more technical and more creative. However, this realization that that job didn't align with my values pushed me to go back to school and to do my Ph.D. So as I said, by identifying my values, it helped with my decision-making throughout my career path and guided me ultimately to where I am today in this fulfilling job that I hold. Okay, that was principles and values. Now we're going to talk about the third part of your personal brand, which is your own reputation. So what's your reputation? I did Google it. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary states that reputation is your quality or character as seen or judged by people in general. It isn't a single person's opinion of you, which might be a good thing. It's kind of the more general opinion of you. Ultimately, I see your reputation as a combination of your recognized strengths plus your consistent actions that reflect a certain set of principles or values. So it kind of encompasses a lot of the things that we've already talked about today with your strengths, your values, and your principles. To build a positive reputation, you have to be consistent and reliable in order to enhance your credibility. It's important to demonstrate integrity by making decisions and acting in alignment with your principles and values, or also by accepting responsibility and owning up to your mistakes. Be honest in your communication, and that will allow you to foster trust, which will contribute to a positive reputation. And finally, being authentic with others allows you to establish genuine connections, which again, contribute to that positive reputation. Building a positive reputation requires consistent effort, integrity over a long period of time. Well, unfortunately, rooting a reputation can take only a few seconds. That being said, if you consistently act with integrity and follow strong principles and values, then if you make a mistake at work, that likely won't ruin your reputation as long as you own up to it and you are honest. If you aren't and you tried to hide it, that could impact your reputation. Or if the mistakes that you make or mistake that you made is at a very, very large scale or is very public, for example, something you post on LinkedIn, then that could also negatively impact your reputation. So just a couple of words of caution, particularly since we live in a very online age where things can be very public. If we are putting stuff out on LinkedIn or even following people on LinkedIn that maybe their reputation is not as great, then you have to be aware that other people will be seeing all of that, and that can impact your professional career. Okay, let's now put it all together and talk about developing your overall brand. It's obviously a lot different than building a commercial brand. You're not going to make a logo or a website. You're basically building up the geotechnical profession's opinion and reputation of your associated with your name. So start by identifying your current position, your current strengths, your current values and principles, and even your current reputation. Are you already known for something? Maybe you are. That's great. Write it down. And then I want you to think about where you want to go in the future. What do you want to be recognized for at the end of your career? And by identifying where you are now and where you want to go, that will help you to think about any potential gaps there are in there. Are there gaps in your strengths? Do you need to build up your knowledge in a certain area or your skill set? Do you need different traits in order to get there? And how do your values align with where you want to go? Likely the values that you've recognized are what's driving where you want to go in your professional career, but just make sure that they're in alignment. I've given a list of different things that you might want to be recognized for in your technical career, in your professional career. So technical expertise, maybe you want to be an expert in a specific field, like climate change or permafrost issues. Maybe you want to be known for innovation. Maybe you want to develop a patent for something. That'd be super cool. Maybe you also want to be known for your business leadership or your mentorship, your volunteering, philanthropy, environmentalism, or social justice. And there's way more things that you could be known for, but I just put some of the ones that I thought of off the top of my head. When we're thinking about what we want to be recognized for, there are a few things that I want you to consider that I think will have an impact on your professional career. And the first one is technology. I work in the tech world as someone that works for a software company. And so I think about technology all the time. But do you think about how technology impacts or will impact your career? Maybe not as much as I do. Technology is constantly advancing. We always have more and more applications that have more and more functionality. Technology influences our profession, and it can be positively with all of this new functionality and these maybe new equipment that we could be using in the field for determining site conditions, or new types of numerical analysis that we could be running. it definitely can have a positive impact on our career. It also could bring some challenges. With more and more things available to us, sometimes it's harder to determine what is good and helpful and what's maybe not so helpful for our career. There also are some challenges around other impacts of the technology that we're using. For example, artificial intelligence. I know everyone is talking about it these days. AI can have significant benefits if you're using it to improve your efficiency and your workflows. Maybe you should think about that, how you can safely and smartly incorporate AI in your day-to-day work to be a better employee, to work faster and provide better outputs. Because you do have to check those outputs. You can't just take everything from AI, obviously, at face value. But there's also the negative sides of AI. There's some really harmful things that artificial intelligence can do. We've seen it recently in the news how there are artificial intelligence programs that can change images in ways that we do not really want them to be changed, that wouldn't be aligning with principles that we think should be universally held. AI also has environmental impacts that are significant. So do you really need to use AI to generate an image of someone's head on some silly body? No, you probably don't, or you probably don't need to create a silly video about something because the environmental impact of making that video probably wasn't worth it. So I would say AI is good if used appropriately. So think about how that might impact your career. No matter what technology you are using, however, you need a technical understanding. You need to have knowledge and skills that you continue to apply. So you as an engineer will never be, I hope, will never be taken over or removed because AI will take over your jobs, because we still need to recognize the inputs and the outputs and figure out if it makes sense in our engineering perspective. We always say in the modeling world, garbage in equals garbage out. And so you always have to be checking using your engineering judgment what technology is telling you. Technology is just one tool in your engineering toolbox. So make sure that you're using your other ones, your knowledge that you learned, for example, what you've observed in the field. Technology can't always tell you exactly what you are observing and apply your knowledge to those different project sites that you're working on. So make sure that you're still applying all of that knowledge that you have so that you are using technology appropriately. Okay, another thing to consider, which I think will, again, become more and more important in the future. I think it's really important now, as I shared. I consider myself to be a bit of an environmentalist, but I think environmental considerations will continue to grow in our field. And that's because the climate, we know it's changing. The environment does impact us. So we will have to continue to consider the effect of climate on our engineering designs, for example. Depending on your role, you might already be considering the environment in your everyday work. If you're a geoenvironmental engineer, that's something that you do daily. Regardless, we can easily see the environmental impacts of what we do. For example, we've seen tailings storage facility failures like the one in Mount Poly that caused release of that contaminated water that impacted surrounding waterways. We can directly see those impacts of our failure to provide solid engineering design. Or thawing permafrost is another thing that could be something that you might be working on, or you would see the impacts of on our work. So designing roadways or infrastructure in the north should have to take into consideration implications on permafrost. I think that because we are working on the ground, we should be stewards for soil and groundwater quality. Even if you aren't an environmentalist, I think it should be something that you would be considering in your day-to-day work. So consider that when you're thinking about your future career and how the environment plays a role in that. The next one is social responsibility. For all of you that graduated from a Canadian institution, you all have an iron ring on your pinky finger, which symbolizes your obligations and your ethics associated with being a professional engineer. Initially, this was related to safety with the collapse of the bridge in Quebec. However, I think that it goes beyond that. I think it is part of our job as an engineer to be socially responsible, to consider how our work affects the public. Some examples are much more obvious. If we have a large failure at a site, we've seen mine pit failures that happen, and there is the consequent loss of life and property. That is a huge impact of us maybe not doing our job properly. But there's also more nuanced social impacts that are more related to perhaps social justice, like infrastructure dividing communities. There's examples of freeways being built that cut off poor Black communities in the States from necessary services, and that only makes those communities more poor. Do we think about those things in our day-to-day work? Maybe not, but should we as professional engineers? I think we do. We still have that duty to the society to be not just being safe about our designs, but also thinking about other implications as well as we move forward. That will make our profession, that will improve our profession, and hopefully cause positive change, not just for us as a profession, but more globally. So that leads into my final slide on what I think you should consider is the profession as a whole. What is your vision for our profession and what we are known for as geoprofessionals or geotechnical engineers? And how do you want to contribute to this? When I think of our profession, there are a few things that come to my mind. Geoprofessionals should demonstrate technical competence and our expert knowledge. We need to act professionally. We should be reliable and trustworthy. And also, we should represent the greater society in which we work. In order to do that, we have to strive for a more equitable, diverse, and inclusive profession. So that's something that I am also really interested in. And so I hope to get more involved in the new Equity, Diversity, and Inclusivity Committee that the CGS has developed. Ultimately, what do you consider, or I want you to consider how your own personal brand relates to what you want geoprofessionals to be known for. Okay, so I've given you a lot of things to think about in terms of building your own brand. A lot of stuff to mull over, but here's a few final thoughts for you before we open up the floor to questions. I think that when we're talking about your personal brand and what you want to be known for at the end of your geotechnical career, it's important to start now by identifying your strengths, your values, and your principles, because once you know those, it helps you to maintain that integrity and act consistently in order to build your reputation. Also, knowing what you want your brand to be and what you're recognized for at the end of your career will help guide your career decisions. As I mentioned, I've used, my personal values in order to help guide my career decisions, which have led me to where I am today. And I do think that I'm in a very fulfilling job. Don't be afraid, though, to think outside of the box. Even if an opportunity comes knocking at your door, and maybe it's not what you thought you would be doing originally, does it match your strengths and your values? And if so, why not go for it? I'm working in software, even though when I graduated from my undergraduate degree, I would have never, ever thought that I would work for a software company. But it matched with my strengths and my values. And because of that, I love my job. And finally, work isn't everything. If we hold values that maybe aren't fully recognized in our professional career, or even in our current job, get involved in other ways. As I mentioned, I'm involved in those environmental organizations because I do like supporting and protecting the environment. I'm going to get involved in the new CGS EDI committee because I'm committed to bettering our profession. So don't be afraid to get involved outside of your daily work, because that will help you, even if it's not directly related to geotechnical engineering. I do think that it helps you to be a more well-rounded professional that brings additional strengths to the table and also contributes to your reputation in a positive way. Okay, that is what I had for you today. No matter what you do, I hope that this talk will inspire you to do something great. So set your sights high, figure out what you want to be known for at the end of your career, dream big, and hopefully that will, by identifying what that is and moving from where you are today towards that, I hope that that means that you'll have a very successful career that you enjoy.